look in your modern versions. Okay. But he's saying something here. So the point is this: the exodus from bondage from Egypt was done in the night. The angel, supposed to be the angel of destruction, killed the firstborn at midnight, and this night fell on the new moon. So that once a month the seed of Jacob will remember what happened, and once a year they will celebrate the passing over. Okay, the descendants of Jacob. Okay. Yeah, for the house of Israel, that exodus or that liberation from Egypt, they commemorate it by having that Passover, because death, that spirit of death, passed over their houses, because they were told, paint young lamb blood on the doors and it'll pass by you, pass over, right? It'll kill everybody else, right? From the youngest or the oldest Egyptian, yeah, the parents, oldest Egyptian to the youngest, etc., like that, right? According to the scriptures. Okay, so that's how they were saved, and then they were liberated or freed. They came out of Egypt, and they went into the desert, moaned and groaned, and then they're supposedly delivered to the promised land, the land of the Canaanites, probably sinners, horrible, doing all these nasty things. So they were like killed off, wiped out, and then these people took that land. Moses apparently died before he was told you'll never see that promised land. Right, he died before that and was secretly buried by God or the angels or something like that. Right, possibly in a cave or something. The scriptures say only God knows where his body lays, etc., etc. Okay, so he's saying, so the point is this exodus from bondage from Egypt was done in the night. The angel of destruction killed the firstborn at midnight. Was it the firstborn of the eldest, according to archaeological and historical records, findings, that the oldest was always the one who ate. Out of the children, he was always the one who ate first. So something like the stored wheat or whatever is left too long on the top, and then they pile the new fresh stuff on, and then they pile it next one like that, right, in their barns or their stocks, and it causes a fungus or some sort of mold which might have killed them. Okay, that's according to scientific tests and all that sort of stuff, or estimations and all that sort of stuff, right? Yeah, so that's probably what killed the eldest. But yeah, okay, so yeah, it would have killed a lot of, from the oldest to the youngest, according to the prophecy or whatever. Okay, some say none of this actually happened. Okay, it's all a lie, especially people from the Kemet belief system. They say, oh, well, this is what it says on the pillars or the posts at what's it called, Luxor, etc. They have a different twist on it. What's his name? Dr. John Henry Clark, and the other one, Dr. Ben, yeah, who actually went there and read the hieroglyphs, and there's a completely different story, probably by King Ahmose the first, and so forth. Okay, so this person is saying about the excess of bondage. He says, all this to place your attention on the meaning of the Passover. What was the purpose? To understand the purpose, you have to place your mind on slavery, and the most effective way is to reflect on the transatlantic slave trade. It's nothing to do with that. That came at a later date. Okay, it's nothing to do with it. The Jews never went on ships, sailed away anywhere, right, into slavery to the Americas with that sort of stuff. Okay, it's a different account, a different happening centuries later. When we read about these when we read about how these people were treated, your mind really begins to understand what it means to be free. Think about the horrors of slavery, etc., etc. Okay, trying to make an impact there. Probably true. That's what the European slave masters did to these African people, etc. You have to feel the message today, etc., etc. Slavery is the worst of hell. Yeah, it would be. For every man desires to be free. Slavery is a crime against humanity, is a crime against mankind. Now Moses' name means drawn from the water. Well, it's all based on an earlier account of Sargon, who may have been of Mesopotamian origin. We read about it a couple of days ago. It's all based on the Sargon myth, that he was pulled out of the water, etc., etc. Right, it's adopted and adapted. Names have been changed, etc., etc. Yeah. His name tells the story of slavery. Yeah, slavery and bondage. The people of Mizraim were killing all their male children in sight of their parents. This is the name for Egypt, isn't it? And it goes on and on. Now the Passover represents freedom, liberation. It's a commemorative thing for the house of Israel, for the Jews. Freedom from oppression. This is why Mizraim was changed to bondage. That's in the modern translations. Okay, they put into English, because the mention of Egypt put fear in the heart of the seed of Jacob. Okay. It goes on about the Passover overview. Passover, modern Hebrew, is a predominantly Jewish holy day and festival. It commemorates the story of the Exodus, in which the ancient Israelites were freed from slavery in Egypt. Yeah, that's partly true, but it's that spirit of death passed over their houses because they had the blood of the lambs on their door. Right? That's what it means. Pass over. Pass them by. Pass their houses by, right? Passover begins on the 14th day of the month of Nisan. That's preparation day. If we remember rightly, it's because according to the world's lastchance.org, the royal Sabbaths were not using the Gregorian calendar, okay, or any Roman calendar for that matter. It's a lunar cycle calendar, the Creator's calendar, in reference to when the sun and the moon, the two great lights, were created. Okay, and it's all according to God's calendar and the Hebrew calendar. Okay, not this Roman Gregorian calendar. Okay, so all the Sabbaths, you got the new moon, the first of the month, indicating that it's a new month, and then you have to work like 6 days, right? The 6th day is a preparation day. You do all your work, talk, etc., etc., tidy up your house, whatever, on that preparation day before the sun sets, right? Because when the sun sets and it's dark, it becomes the Sabbath. Okay, the Sabbath day, and you didn't do anything like considerable work on the Sabbath day. So these original Sabbath days were the 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, and the 29th. And then the 29th was at night you look up into the night sky and you'd see the crescent moon, which is an indication of a new month coming up, a new moon, a new month, etc., etc. And if you couldn't see it that night, you were given the optional 30th day to see it, right? Okay. So yeah, this is a preparation day. Why? Because in Exodus it says that the house of Israel were wandering around in the desert right now, moaning, groaning, "Oh, you brought us here to die, God. We're starving, got nothing to eat, no water, etc., etc." So I guess he got, a bit sick of their whinging. So he says, "I'll feed you," and he dropped manna from heaven. It was like a mixture of cumin seed and cucumber, all this sort of stuff, what we've read so far, right? And they were to eat that on the 14th. They were to gather as much as they wanted, right? There's no limit, and store it in their houses, and that's what they would eat, right? And on the Sabbath, they weren't allowed to pick it up, right? Obviously, because it'll be rotting on the ground, right? Mouldy, whatever, right? But some went out there and started gathering it, so they got punished for it because they broke that command, right? Okay, so that's the that's the preparation day. It's not the Sabbath. Okay. It's one of the most widely observed Jewish holidays. In the narrative of the Exodus, the Bible tells that God helped the children of Israel escape slavery in Egypt. He set them free by inflicting 10 plagues upon the Egyptians before Pharaoh would release his Israelite slaves. Well, if you look at the archaeological study of it, the proofs of it, the evidence of it, apparently there was a volcano somewhere near Greece or something like that that exploded, and it set off waves and this red flowery thing or plague or whatever it was, and it caused all these problems, right? You have to go do your personal research on it. We're just recording it, what we read on there. It set off a lot of events. Egypt happened to be further down. It all went through the water or something, and all this other stuff, right? Black in the air because it's a volcano and all that sort of stuff. Again, you have to go do your own personal research on that, which we've done. Okay, helped the children of Israel escape slavery in Egypt by inflicting 10 plagues upon the Egyptians before Pharaoh would release his Israelite slaves. See, they can't even tell you which Pharaoh that was. Some will say, it was Ramses. The Bible says it's Ramses, but it doesn't say that, right? And apparently this archaeologist checking out the chronological timetable found that it was incorrect from 100 to 300 years out, right? So it wasn't Ramses, it was probably some other pharaoh. Okay, but the city of Ramses, where they did all their holy worship and stuff, but I think the Assyrians came in and invaded and destroyed it. Okay. The Israelites were instructed to mark the doorposts of their homes with the blood of a spring lamb, and upon seeing this, the Spirit of the Lord passed over these homes with a messenger of death, right? With the spirit of death. Hence the term Passover, as we said before. They were passed over, right? The spirit of death went past their house, didn't go in there and take the life of their children or whoever. When Pharaoh apparently in the Egyptian means house, so it should really be called a king, okay? But it's house of whoever was the king at the time, right? When Pharaoh freed the Israelites, it is said that they left in such a hurry that they could not wait for bread to rise. In commemoration for the duration of Passover, no leavened bread is eaten, for which reason it is called the festival of the unleavened bread. And matzah. Flat unleavened bread is the primary symbol of the holiday. It's commemoration, right? They have matzah or matzvah, unleavened bread. We had a recipe for that, we just haven't made it yet. Okay, and the lost tribes that were found by Simsi Jovovich, they were found because he had a Jew from Israel taking along, and he says, how the heck did they know how to make that traditional bread, right? No one's taught them, he didn't teach them, Simcha Jovovich didn't teach them, so how the hell did they know that? Because apparently they are descendants of those 10 lost tribes. They were like Chinese, and then there's a military version of them that had Jovovich worried, and Indians, a group in India, right, that did similar things, and a couple of others, and then the Ethiopians who are seen on that documentary walking into Israel. They were invited. Apparently a lot of them were transported there by plane, by a big plane, all that sort of stuff. You have to go watch that video. So according to this article, the main focus about Passover is flat bread. Matzvah, the festival of the unleavened bread, written straight from the hands of the oppressor. Okay, so he's saying that it's recorded by the Egyptians. He made the meaning of Passover as bland as bread. Okay, so this person says. Now he's going to read two verses concerning the Passover from Yasha, the book of Yasha and Exodus. Okay, so we'll have a look at Exodus 12:23, because this is probably a pseudepigrapha book. Okay, it's mentioned in the Bible, Jasher. Okay, no J in the Aramaic or the Hebrew, supposedly. So yeah, Yasha, we go with that. Okay, so it could be a pseudepigrapha book. Someone may have said, oh, we found it. or they wrote, a version of it in 1789 or something. You have to go do the personal research on that book, right, to see who wrote it and what date it was written. Okay, have a look at that. Or the book of Exodus. Okay, 1223. Okay, have a look at that. See what it says. 1223. This is 1223. It's 9. 1223. 1223. And the Lord shall pass by to strike the Egyptians, and he shall see the blood on the entry stone and on the beam of the doorpost. And the Lord shall pass over those doors, and he shall not allow the destroyer to enter your homes to destroy. See, there you go. In the original Brita or Genesis, that's what it says there. And the Lord or God shall pass by to strike the Egyptians, and he shall see the blood on the entry stone and on the beam over the doorpost, and the Lord shall pass over those doors, and he shall not allow the destroyer to enter your homes to destroy. Okay, so he's the authority of it, right? He's the one that oversees it, right? He's the overseer, and he commands the destroyer or death to enter the homes and kill the firstborn, the youngest, etc. of the Egyptians, whoever wasn't of God. Okay, who's the oppressor? Okay. And it states, and you shall observe this tradition and this law for you and your children until the end of the universe. So Jews are bound by it. Right? What does it say? 24. Event. Okay. Literal Aramaic idiom, event. So this event, they have to honour it to the end of the centuries. This is a Jewish thing. Okay. A command, a law, a decree by God for you and your children until the end of the universe. Okay. So that's why these Jews observe that Sabbath. Okay. It's for the Jews. Okay. He's talking to the house of Israel, the Jews. Okay. But Gentiles, non-Jews, etc., have adopted it. Okay? Adopted it, perhaps adapted it. Okay. But that's what it's saying there. It's talking to that God is talking to the house of Israel in that era, in that age, in that day. And it will come to pass that when your children, the descendants of these Jews, right, their children and their children's children, will ask you, what observance is this? Because, children don't know. Right? And they go, what's this? You shall tell them, this is the offering of the Passover, when the Lord passed the homes of the children of Israel, our ancestors, or their ancestors, in Egypt, as he struck the Egyptians and passed over our houses, the house of the Israelites, and the nation sat up and worshipped the Lord. Okay? That's talking about the Israel nation, right? Or the nation of Israel, the tribe of Israel, the house of Israel. And there went the children of Israel and did as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron. That is what they did. And in the middle of the night, the Lord killed all the male heirs, the oldest sons, right, in the land of Egypt, from the heir of the king or the Pharaoh who sat on the throne to the heir of the lowly who sat in prison, and all of the four-legged animals. So human and animals had an eldest offspring. They died. And it carries on there. Okay. So we're going to go back to that book. Then it goes to the book of Yasha. We might cover that in part 2. He says, okay, now when I read this, my mind is on the Most High, my mind is on the blood, my mind is thinking about the Passover and what does it mean. Also, I just read 2 verses from 2 different books, Yasha and Exodus, that mention the reason why we have the Passover, which is freedom. It's a commemoration of that liberation. Yeah, that's right. Freedom from Egypt, from bondage, from slavery, right? The oppressor cannot know what it feels to be in bondage. He can't articulate something he does not understand, that he's never experienced, which should be a clue. Now there is something else you should take note. of. Did you notice all the reference to the Most High? No less than 7 times do you see a reference to the Father in these 2 short verses. So keep this in your mind as I move towards his next topic. Okay. And he asks about, have you heard of the Holy Day Purim?